It's strange, the way your whole world can tilt sideways in a single breath. That Sunday morning had all the makings of normalcy. The sky was clear, sunlight breaking across the front lawn like it had something to prove after 3 days of drizzle. Birds were chirping somewhere overhead and the air smelled faintly of cut grass and gasoline. I wasn't even supposed to be home yet, had a flight booked for Monday, but the real estate agent had called last minute and asked if we could get a head start on inspecting the house I'd inherited. Quieter on the weekends, she'd said. Easier to feel the place. That was the thing about this place, it didn't feel like anything yet. Just walls and windows. It had belonged to my late uncle, a reclusive man who passed away without much warning and even less ceremony. I barely knew him, and yet I was suddenly the owner of a 2-story red brick home on the edge of a Texas suburb where the neighbors nodded politely but never smiled too wide. Lily and I had moved in 3 weeks ago, mostly because it seemed practical. We'd been living in a small apartment in Dallas, and the inheritance felt like a reset button. A new house, a new town, a new phase of life. Or so I thought. As I pulled into the driveway, I glanced at the passenger seat where Carla, the real estate agent, was reviewing her notes. She was in her late 30s, efficient and brisk, the type who wore heels even when there was no one to impress. I'd told her I'd left the house empty so she could have a clean look. That was true. When I left last Friday, Lily had said she might visit her sister in Waco for the weekend. But as I sat there in the car, a creeping sense of unease started curling in my chest like smoke. It was the curtains first. The ones in the living room. They were drawn halfway shut. Lily liked sunlight. She said it made the house feel awake. "You okay?" Carla asked, not looking up. "Yeah," I replied automatically. "Just give me a second. I want to make sure the place is ready." I stepped out of the car and walked up the front path, gravel crunching under my shoes. As I reached the porch, I noticed it again, something out of rhythm. The quiet was too complete. No music playing, no TV on low in the background like Lily usually left it when she was home alone. Then I noticed the scent. Not the faint vanilla of Lily's candles or the aroma of ground coffee we kept in a tin labeled Brooks Brew. This was sharper, heavier, and unfamiliar cologne that hit me like a slap. I paused, frowning. And then I heard it. A cough. Low, unmistakably male, coming from somewhere deeper in the house. It was muffled but not enough to mistake. It was the kind of cough people make when they're trying not to be heard. My hand hovered over the doorknob. For one brief second I considered walking away, pretending I hadn't noticed anything. Maybe it really was her brother, she had two, both younger. Maybe she changed her mind and decided not to leave town after all. But then I noticed the shoes. A pair of size 11 sneakers set neatly on the mat just inside the door, gray and black Nikes I didn't recognize. Worn laces. Mud caked into the treads. Not mine. Not anything I'd ever seen Lily buy. I stared at them, trying to process what I already knew. The front door creaked open. And there she was. Lily. My wife stood in the doorway, blinking in disbelief, her fingers tightening the robe she wore, one I hadn't seen since our honeymoon in Arizona. Thin cotton, pale pink, slightly translucent in the morning light. Her hair was damp at the ends, curled from steam. No makeup. No earrings. Just Lily and the look of someone who'd been caught mid-thought. "Tyler," she said, her voice rising an octave. What are you doing here?" I took a breath and tried to speak casually. "Agent needed to see the house today. I figured I'd come along." Behind me, I heard Carla step out of the car and begin making her way up the path. I didn't turn to look. Lily's eyes flicked past me. She reached for composure like it was a towel slipping from her fingers. "Oh, wow, yeah? I'm sorry, I wasn't expecting anyone. You should have called." Her voice sounded practiced. Smooth but strained. My eyes drifted past her to the staircase behind. The cough hadn't come again, but the silence now felt suffocating. A hallway door clicked shut upstairs. I gestured vaguely toward the interior. "Anyone else here?" Her lips parted, just barely. "Yeah," she said after the smallest pause. "My brother. Nathan. He stopped by. I told you he might." Nathan lived in Colorado. "Right," I said. "Didn't realize he'd be down this weekend." She smiled too quickly, too tightly. "Yeah, it was last minute. He had a friend's wedding out near Temple. Figured he'd swing by." Carla cleared her throat from behind me. "You ready to let me in, or should I come back later?" I stepped aside, still watching Lily. "No, come on in. House is yours." Lily looked like she wanted to say something more, but whatever it was stayed lodged behind her clenched jaw. She opened the door wider, letting Carla step past us. I followed them in. The kitchen was clean, too clean. No mugs in the sink, no clutter on the counter. Everything had been recently wiped down. A faint trail of steam still drifted from the coffee pot. As Carla made her way through the rooms, jotting notes on her clipboard, I moved slower. Every detail felt amplified. The faint scent of cologne still clung to the air. The living room blanket, the one we kept folded neatly on the couch, was now rumpled and tossed across the armrest. Lily hovered behind me, arms crossed, watching. "Do you want some coffee?" I turned to her. She was barefoot. Her toenails still had the polish from the last pedicure we'd gotten together. "Sure," I said, though the idea of drinking anything right now made my stomach churn. She walked into the kitchen and busied herself with cups. I followed her with my eyes, noting the tremor in her hands as she reached for the mugs. My own hand went to my pocket, fingers brushing against the keys I hadn't realized I'd been gripping. In the silence, the house felt like it was holding its breath. Something had shifted subtly, irrevocably. I didn't need to see a stranger's face or catch them sneaking out the back. I didn't need more than the cough, the shoes, the scent, the way Lily tightened her robe as if I hadn't already seen too much. I didn't say a word, but inside something folded. Quietly, like a tent being collapsed in slow motion. And once it folded, it didn't unfold again. After that Sunday, nothing ever looked the same. The air around Lily changed, not in some dramatic, thunderstorm kind of way, but in the slow, creeping fog of something not quite right. She still smiled. Still made coffee. Still kissed my cheek in the mornings like she always did. But everything was different. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wasn't ready, not because I was afraid of the truth, but because I wasn't sure I trusted myself to handle it. I needed time. I needed space to see it all clearly without the haze of shock clouding my judgment. And that's when it started, the rewind. Every moment from the past few months began replaying in my mind, recontextualized with new meaning. Like the shopping bags. 2 weeks before, she'd come home with 3 of them, sleek, high-end boutiques she never used to go near. She said she'd needed a refresh, that it was part of getting back to feeling like myself. At the time, I'd smiled and told her she looked beautiful because she did. But now I remembered how nervous she was unpacking them. How she had shoved one blouse back into the bag when I walked into the room. Or the gym membership. She joined a private training studio downtown, way out of the way for her usual errands. Said she wanted one-on-one sessions to build confidence. It made sense then. Lily was always self-conscious about her arms, and I supported her wanting to feel better. But now I remembered how she'd started showering there instead of at home, how her sessions ran late into the evening, and how sometimes she'd come home in clothes I hadn't seen her leave in. Then there was the bank account. She called it just a little side savings. Something she wanted to manage herself to fund personal growth projects. I didn't question it, why would I? We each had independent money. It wasn't until I asked to deposit a check into it as a surprise that she got defensive, almost angry, brushing me off with a joke about wanting a secret fund for my birthday present. I let it go. And her phone, God, her phone. It never left her side anymore. Used to be she'd toss it on the counter while we cooked or leave it charging in the bedroom for hours. Now it was face down, always on vibrate. I remember one night hearing it buzz at least 6 times while she was in the shower. The screen lit up, but I couldn't see the messages. Just the name, Claire. Claire who? Lily didn't work with a Claire. None of her friends were named Claire. When I asked, she waved it off. Oh, it's short for Clarice, a new girl from marketing. But her voice was too quick, too deliberate. The kind of lie you prepare in advance. There were the meetings too. Always marketing meetings. Always last minute. Always running late. I started noticing the patterns every Tuesday and Thursday night like clockwork. And she'd come home with her hair retouched, lips a little too pink, that same faint cologne I'd smelled in the house. I tried to be rational. Tried to tell myself that doubt could twist anything. That suspicion could turn perfectly normal behavior into damning evidence. But the truth was I wasn't imagining it. I had just refused to see it until now. And it hurt in ways I hadn't expected. It wasn't just the idea of Lily with someone else. It was the betrayal of trust. The realization that I had let it happen in plain sight. That while I was making plans, she was making exit strategies. Even the way she touched me changed. She still held my hand, still curled into me at night, but it felt rehearsed. Like she was playing the role of a wife in a life she no longer wanted. I found myself watching her more closely, not in a loving way, but like a man studying a stranger through glass. I took note of her sighs, her silences, the way her eyes darted when I mentioned anything future-related. Vacation plans, house upgrades, even dinner next weekend. And slowly, the pieces started fitting together. She had started bringing home groceries that only she ate, almond milk, protein powders, health bars I'd never seen before. Her Spotify playlist was filled with songs that didn't match her taste. Her scent was different. Even the way she answered the phone changed. Short, clipped, like she was afraid I'd overhear something. One night, I tested something. I asked casually if she wanted to visit my parents next month. We hadn't seen them in a while, and they adored her. She hesitated for a second too long. Next month? She said. I might have a conference. Not sure yet. What kind of conference? She blinked. Marketing. The usual. They're still finalizing it. Where? Dallas, I think. Or maybe Austin. I'll check. She smiled after she said it, but her eyes weren't smiling. I said nothing, just nodded, and poured us both another glass of wine. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay next to her in the dark, listening to her breathing, wondering how long I'd been sharing a bed with someone who wasn't really here. What made it worse, what burned deeper than anything, was that part of me still loved her, still wanted to believe in her, still remembered the girl I met 6 years ago at a volunteer event, hair tied up in a messy bun, laughing at my terrible attempts to organize donation boxes. I remembered how she looked the night I proposed under the old oak tree behind her college dorm. The way she cried, said yes, then said, "You're my forever." What do you do when your forever starts lying? In the following days, I began gathering proof. Not because I wanted to catch her, but because I needed to stop gaslighting myself. I needed to stop thinking I was the one going crazy. So I started paying attention, documenting things, quietly, methodically. I took photos of the receipts she left in the trash. I made mental notes of times, locations, inconsistencies. I started using the home Wi-Fi logs to track what devices connected and when. She'd been using hotel Wi-Fi once at a Hilton, once at a boutique place downtown. I stopped asking questions. I just watched. And the more I watched, the more I saw how far she had drifted from me. She wasn't Lily anymore, not the woman I married. She was someone else now. Someone who smiled too much and laughed too easily and smelled like things I couldn't name. And I wasn't sure who I was anymore either. But I knew this much. The life I thought we were living was gone. All that was left was the version she wanted me to see, and I'd finally stopped falling for it. The lie unraveled on a Tuesday. It was raining, not the cinematic kind with thunder and lightning, just the soft, relentless drizzle that turns everything gray and makes the world feel heavier than it should. Lily had mentioned she had a late dinner with a prospective client, said it was part of a marketing push she couldn't miss. She wore a navy dress I hadn't seen before, lips painted a shade darker than usual, and her perfume lingered in the hallway long after the door closed behind her. "Don't wait up," she'd said. I didn't. I waited until her car had been gone 10 minutes. Then I walked into the garage, opened her vehicle, and checked the glove box. I wasn't expecting much, maybe a receipt, maybe nothing. But I found exactly what I didn't want to. A hotel receipt, dated the night before. 2 guests. Late checkout. At first, I just stared at it, blinking like the numbers might rearrange themselves. Maybe she booked it for someone else. Maybe it was business. But my gut, the same one that had been tightening for weeks, squeezed hard. I sat in the driver's seat and opened the navigation history. Downtown. Not the client dinner location she had claimed to visit. She had gone to the same boutique hotel that popped up in the Wi-Fi logs last week. The same one she'd visited on a spa day 3 Saturdays ago. I took a photo of the receipt. Then I started digging deeper. Back inside, I opened our shared phone plan online. She didn't know I still had the login. In the past, we joked that we were transparent to a fault. I clicked through the call logs. The name Claire didn't appear anywhere, but a number 1 I didn't recognize did. Dozens of times. Always in the evening. Always around the same window she was working late. Once even during a dinner we were having with my sister where Lily had stepped outside to check on a campaign. I copied the number, punched it into a reverse lookup service, registered to a prepaid phone. No name. Next, I logged into her bank account and cross-referenced charges. Uber rides, hotel bars, restaurant bills at places I'd never been invited to. One stood out, a charge from a high-end lounge I knew well. It was where I had taken Lily on our 2nd anniversary. She had gone there 3 nights ago. Alone? Not likely. I kept clicking. More receipts. More patterns. One from a men's boutique. A cologne brand I didn't wear. Another from a florist, roses sent to a T. Brooks, but I never got them. That was the moment the doubt ended. All this time I tried to balance my intuition against my loyalty. I told myself that love was trust. That the version of Lily who had once danced barefoot in our kitchen was still in there somewhere. But the evidence didn't lie. She had crafted a parallel life, one she never expected me to find. One where I wasn't invited. I closed the laptop and sat in the silence of our kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator louder than it had any right to be. My hands shook not from anger, but from the quiet horror of realizing I'd been gaslit in my own home. When she returned later that night, I was sitting on the couch. "Hey," she said, dropping her keys into the bowl like nothing had happened. "Dinner ran long." "Sorry." I looked at her. Just looked. Her cheeks were flushed. Her lipstick was slightly faded. And her shoes she'd changed into flats in the car, but I could still see the imprint of heels in her gait. "How was the client?" I asked, my voice even. She blinked, surprised that I wasn't asleep. "Good," she said. "Real estate guy. Looking for a marketing firm that can handle property launches." I nodded slowly. "Downtown, right?" "Yeah," she said too quickly. "You take 75 or cut across on Lemon?" She hesitated. "Lemon. Less traffic." I said, standing up. "Odd. Your navigation history says you were at the Lenox Hotel." She froze. Just for a second. But it was enough. She started. "You also bought drinks at the rooftop bar," I continued, walking over to her. "Same place we went 2 years ago. Funny coincidence." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I handed her the hotel receipt. "I found this in your glove box," I said. "Want to tell me who checked in with you?" She looked down, reading it. Her eyes darted. This isn't what you think. Isn't it?" I said quietly. "I booked the room for Claire," she said, almost too fast. She was going through a breakup. I thought she needed a night to decompress. "Claire doesn't exist," I said. I checked. "The number you've been texting?" "Burner phone. Prepaid. Bought in cash." Her face paled. I leaned in, close enough to smell that same unfamiliar cologne clinging to her collar. "Don't lie to me," I said. "Not now." She stepped back, defensive. "Why are you checking up on me?" "That's insane, Tyler." "That's because you made me feel crazy," I said. And I was tired of doubting myself. The room was silent. She looked down at the receipt, then back up at me. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered. "You just didn't want to get caught." She nodded slowly. No more excuses. No tears. Just the quiet admission that everything I feared was real. "I think I need to pack a few things," she said. "You have 5 minutes," I replied. "Don't make me ask twice." She walked upstairs. I didn't follow. For the next 10 minutes, I stood in the same spot, arms folded, watching the doorway like it might grow teeth. She returned with a duffel bag, eyes swollen, face streaked with mascara. She looked smaller than I remembered. She reached for the doorknob, then turned. "I really did love you, Tyler." "No," I said calmly. "You loved what I gave you. What I made possible. That's different." And then she was gone. I locked the door behind her. You never really know how strong you are until the ground gives way beneath you. In the days after Lily left, I didn't crumble. I didn't drown in sadness or pace the house waiting for answers that would never come. What I did was simple. I got to work. The betrayal had stripped away the illusion of stability, but in its place came something sharper, focus. I realized that if I didn't act quickly, smartly, and without emotion, I'd be left not only heartbroken but blindsided by whatever she was planning next. So I froze our joint checking and savings accounts. I had a gut feeling she'd try to move money. I was right. Within 24 hours, I got an alert from the bank, an attempted transfer to an unregistered account flagged for suspicious activity. She tried to move $5,000. I shut that down before it cleared. Next, I collected every important document I could think of: titles, insurance, investment records, tax returns, even copies of our marriage certificate and prenup. I locked them in a fireproof safe I placed at my office downtown, somewhere she wouldn't think to look. Then came the digital side. I updated passwords on everything: email, cloud storage, shared drives. I logged out of every session, enabled two-factor authentication, and disabled her access to any accounts where she had permissions just in case. And I switched to remote work full-time. At first, my boss thought it was burnout. I gave him a version of the truth. Personal situation. Need to stay local. I'll be online. He respected that. Maybe he'd gone through something like this before. Once I had my house, finances, and digital life locked down, I contacted a lawyer. Her name was Genevieve Morgan. 45, sharp as a blade, and known for handling high-asset divorce cases with clinical precision. We met in a quiet office off Elm Street, surrounded by dark mahogany bookshelves and silence. I told her everything. By the time I finished, she didn't even blink. "You're not just dealing with infidelity," she said, adjusting her glasses. "You're dealing with someone who's been planning an exit for a while." "How long do you think?" I asked. She didn't hesitate. "Months. Possibly more." And she was right. A forensic accountant she worked with reviewed our financials and found transfers, small, recurring payments made from Lily's personal development account to an unfamiliar routing number. One of the recipients? A name that matched a rental lease in her name. A second apartment paid in full through July. She hadn't just betrayed me emotionally, she had built an entire shadow life, piece by piece. But that wasn't all. Genevieve uncovered something worse. Lily had already met with a divorce attorney. 3 weeks ago. "Well, before the hotel," Genevieve said. "Before you even suspected." "Why?" I asked, even though I knew. She wanted to know what she was entitled to. "Before your inheritance became public." The timing wasn't lost on me. My uncle's estate had taken months to go through probate. Only recently had the assets beg *N to transfer, real estate, stocks, and a sizable life insurance policy he left to the only family who ever called him on Christmas. Me. Genevieve pulled up the deed records. She had no legal claim to any of this. It was a family inheritance. But she didn't want to take chances. That's when she showed me something else, an insurance policy. One I didn't know existed. It was taken out 4 months ago. On me. Lily had submitted a life insurance application naming herself as the sole beneficiary without my knowledge. She'd forged my signature and the policy had already gone active. "Jesus," I muttered. "Could she actually collect on that?" "Not without something drastic happening to you," Genevieve said. "But it tells us what kind of mindset she's been in." Paranoia crept in then, sour and metallic. This wasn't just about infidelity. This was strategy. Calculation. Every move she made, from the gym membership to the separate account to the burner phone and the rental unit, was part of a larger blueprint. A slow, quiet unraveling of our life so she could leave clean and land on her feet while I staggered behind. But she'd underestimated one thing. Me. Because now I had the playbook. And I wasn't going to let her walk away with anything that didn't belong to her. Genevieve and I put a plan in motion. First, a cease and desist notice to her attorney demanding disclosure of any legal consultations or asset assessments. Then a restraining order request tied to the forged insurance documents. And finally, an emergency court motion to freeze marital assets and begin separation proceedings under cause of fraud and infidelity. Everything we filed had evidence attached, photos of hotel receipts, phone records, bank transactions, and the forged signature on the life insurance policy. Genevieve even subpoenaed the boutique hotel for surveillance footage, which they were legally required to provide. And yes, there she was, walking in at 9:43 p.m. with a man I didn't recognize, hand in hand. That footage never made me angry. Not anymore. It just confirmed what I already knew. She was gone long before I knew she was leaving. What did surprise me was how quiet Lily remained. No texts. No calls. No tears or voicemail breakdowns begging for forgiveness. Just silence. Maybe she knew the legal clock was ticking. Or maybe the man in the video was already offering her the future she thought she wanted. But I wasn't chasing her anymore. I had moved from heartbreak to strategy. From confusion to control. And while Lily had built her exit like a chessboard, assuming I wouldn't see the moves until it was too late, I was now flipping the whole table over. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. About protecting what was mine. About proving to her and to myself that no matter how carefully someone tries to dismantle your life, there's always a way to rebuild it stronger. And I wasn't just rebuilding. I was preparing for war. The courtroom didn't feel dramatic. No gavel slams, no gasps from the gallery. It smelled like stale air and old coffee, and the carpet had that muted beige tone that looked tired no matter how many times it had been vacuumed. And yet sitting there, I felt more alive than I had in months. This was the culmination. The confrontation I never asked for but had prepared for with precision. Lily was seated across from me with her attorney, someone new, not the first one she'd quietly consulted weeks before. Maybe that one had bailed after realizing what she'd hidden. Or maybe Lily just wanted someone she could still manipulate. She didn't look at me. She wore a pale blue blouse, minimal makeup, and that same forced calm I'd seen the night I found the hotel receipt. But I could see it in the twitch of her fingers, the way she clutched a tissue she hadn't even used yet. She was nervous. Genevieve sat beside me, flipping through our file like it was just another Tuesday. But the moment the judge entered and we were told to rise, everything sharpened. We weren't here for closure. We were here for facts. The judge was a middle-aged woman with a tone that said she'd seen every kind of lie imaginable. And that worked in our favor. She wasn't interested in drama. She was interested in documentation. Mr. Brooks, she began, your counsel has submitted a motion requesting sole ownership of the estate and marital assets based on fraud and premeditated concealment. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. And you're prepared to present evidence to that effect today? We are. Genevieve stood, cleared her throat, and launched into what I can only describe as a calm dismantling of Lily's double life. She started with the timeline, when I received my uncle's inheritance, the initial transfers, and Lily's behaviors before and after. Then she transitioned to the financial audit showing how Lily had systematically diverted funds, opened a secondary residence under her name, and taken steps to isolate assets in anticipation of a separation long before the affair was uncovered. It wasn't just the cheating. It was the intent, the premeditation. Genevieve produced the burner phone logs, the hotel receipts, and the photos. She submitted *TS of call histories and subpoenaed bank statements. Then she presented a notarized analysis from a forensic handwriting expert who confirmed that the life insurance application had been forged. My signature had been lifted from a past document, then traced to sign off on a $500,000 policy with Lily listed as the sole beneficiary. The judge raised her eyebrows at that. Ms. Brooks, she said, turning to Lily. Do you have a response to the allegation of forgery? Her attorney stood, trying to keep his voice level. Your Honor, my client admits to obtaining the policy, but she disputes the intent. She was concerned about their future. She made an error in judgment. An error in judgment. That phrase hung in the air like something rotten. The judge frowned. And the fact that it was signed without the knowledge or consent of Mr. Brooks? Again, her attorney said it was poor judgment, not malice. Genevieve smiled slightly. May I submit a message history, Your Honor? Between Ms. Brooks and a third party, detailing how the policy was a backup in case things got ugly. Her words. The courtroom was quiet as the judge reviewed the exhibit. A few lines stood out in bold. If this all falls apart, at least I'll have something. He's so trusting, it's like stealing candy. The judge set the folder down. I glanced over at Lily. Her eyes were glassy now. The mask she wore was slipping. Genevieve continued, presenting video footage from the hotel. The timestamp matched the date on the receipt. Lily laughing, holding hands. Her supposed client nuzzling her neck as they waited for the elevator. Her lawyer objected. Your Honor, we dispute the relevance of this. Infidelity, while unfortunate, is not a. The relevance, the judge interrupted, is in the timing. It corroborates a pattern of deception which goes directly to asset concealment. I'll allow it. It was like watching dominoes fall. Each new piece of evidence didn't just build the case, it chipped away at Lily's credibility until the woman sitting across from me looked like a stranger even to herself. Then came the nail in the coffin. Genevieve called the private investigator to the stand. A quiet man with a calm demeanor, he detailed every movement Lily had made in the month prior. He had receipts, photos, timestamps, but what sealed it was his last statement. In my professional opinion, the subject was not preparing to resolve marital conflict. She was preparing to exit the marriage while retaining as many assets as possible without legal detection. When Lily's turn came, her attorney advised her not to testify. But she did anyway. She stood, shaky but composed, and told a version of events that painted her as lost, confused, overwhelmed by expectations. She didn't deny the affair, or the second apartment, or the forged signature. She just reframed it. I didn't know how to ask for help, she said. I was trying to create a safety net. I thought if I could just figure things out on my own, I wouldn't have to hurt him. Genevieve stood. Ms. Brooks, do you consider taking out a $500,000 insurance policy in your husband's name without his knowledge to be part of that figuring out? Lily hesitated. It wasn't meant like that. No further questions. The judge recessed for 30 minutes. I sat there, not looking at Lily. I didn't feel anger anymore. Just tired. When the judge returned, her decision was swift. Based on the evidence presented, the court finds that Ms. Brooks engaged in a sustained pattern of deception and financial misrepresentation. All inheritance assets will remain with Mr. Brooks. Furthermore, the court finds no merit in Ms. Brooks' claims to shared ownership of said inheritance, as the majority of her actions predate legal entitlements under marital statutes. She turned to Lily. Your claims are dismissed. Lily didn't speak. She just sat there, lips trembling, her attorney whispering something she clearly didn't hear. Then the judge added one more line. The court reserves the right to refer this matter for further review regarding potential criminal fraud, pending review of the forged documentation. It was over. Outside, as the autumn wind picked up, Lily stood on the courthouse steps like someone waiting for a bus that never came. She didn't speak to me, didn't look at me. But I saw the exact moment she realized what she'd lost, not just the case, not just the money, but the ability to rewrite the story. To paint herself as misunderstood, mistreated, or misled. There was no narrative now. Only facts. And I walked away with something no one could take from me. Certainty. A few weeks passed. The house was quieter, lighter. I started sleeping through the night again. I thought that was the end of it, that the court ruling, the dismissed claims, and her silent departure had closed the door for good. But then she showed up. It was a Wednesday morning. I was at the office of the nonprofit I'd recently launched, Honest Voice, a foundation for men blindsided in divorce. I just stepped out of a meeting when I saw her through the front glass. Lily. She looked thinner, almost hollow. Hair pulled back. No makeup. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't look put together, she looked human. Tyler, she said as I opened the door, please. I just need a few minutes. I almost walked away. But something in me said to listen, maybe not for her sake, but for mine. We sat in the lobby. He left, she said after a long pause. The guy said he didn't want the mess. I nodded. I didn't gloat. I didn't say, I told you so. I just let the silence do the talking. I lost everything, she said, eyes glassy. I know I don't deserve your help or your kindness, but I don't know where else to go. That's when Genevieve texted me. She's filed a motion to reopen the case. Says the inheritance should be considered marital property. So that was it. She wasn't here for closure. She was here for strategy again. I know about the appeal, I said. Her eyes widened. And I know it won't go anywhere. You forgot something, Lily, your messages. Your threats. Every documented conversation between you and him paints a very different picture than the one your lawyer's trying to sell. She tried to speak, but I raised my hand. We're done, I said calmly. And you're done. The court's seen who you are. And so have I. She left without another word. A week later, the judge denied her motion without a hearing. There were no second chances. I didn't look back after that. The foundation took off faster than I expected. Within months, Honest Voice was helping dozens of men navigate the chaos I just survived, some betrayed, some blindsided, all carrying the same weight I once did. We exposed 3 corrupt attorneys running schemes like Lily's. We helped push a reform bill on asset division through state legislature. I started speaking at panels, sharing my story not as a victim, but as a man who had clawed his way back from the edge. And that's where I met Olivia. She was a guest speaker, a family law attorney who didn't recognize me. Didn't know my past. She just saw me as someone trying to do good. Our connection wasn't instant fireworks. It was quiet. Steady. Real. She didn't ask about Lily and I didn't offer. We built something from scratch, no masks, no manipulation, just truth. For the first time, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. Not waiting for someone to love me. Not wondering if I was enough. Just whole. And that's how I knew I'd made it. Not because I'd won in court. Not because I'd moved on. But because I no longer had to look over my shoulder.